Everyone hated them. Everyone was absolutely wrong. If you grew up in the 70s or 80s like I did, you remember going back to school after Christmas break, going around the room and telling everybody what you got for Christmas. And that means you also remember shying away from saying the brand name if it wasn't popular. You might try to sneak something in there like, I just got a really cool stereo system, and only to have Billy Badass in the corner go, yeah, but it's a realistic, and have the rest of the classroom just laughing like it was the funniest thing they've ever heard. And like most things in life, at that age, they were just wrong. And so was I. So in this video, we're going to look at realistic and why it got bashed so hard. Was this equipment really that bad? Later, I've got 4 realistic standout models I think you're going to want to know about. You might not know Realistic actually made one of the best-selling hi-fi products spanning over 3 decades. But first, let's look at where Realistics were sold exclusively, and maybe that'll help explain why Realistic back in the day got the short end of the stick. And this video is brought to you by Skylab's Audio.com and the new Audio-Technica AT-LP-A2. I appreciate you supporting our small business in West Des Moines, Iowa. Thank you. I don't think we have a week go by here at the shop where somebody doesn't say, man, I really wish Radio Shack was still around. And I agree. I do. The old Radio Shack, before it essentially became a cell phone toy store in the 2000s. And in a way, Radio Shack was kind of a safe haven. It was the one place in the mall that you didn't need to be cool to go in, because nobody in there was cool usually. It was kind of a nerdy, geeky place. You weren't going to see the football players and the cheerleaders hanging out at Radio Shack. There were usually kids with calculators and pocket protectors strategizing about the upcoming competition in this year's science fair. Or people like my dad, either because they're trying to pinch pennies or they just like tinkering with things. If the switch on a 10-year-old toaster failed, rather than buying a new one, you might go to Radio Shack and see if they got a replacement. You know, because back in the day, they actually sold capacitors, resistors. They'd have kits for building new projects. You'd be able to buy replacement belts for your VCR, your cassette deck, turntable. Despite it not being a cool store, it was a very cool store for people like us. And on top of all that, they sold stereo equipment, receivers, turntables, speakers. And some of the stereo equipment was no joke. It was really good. And because Billy Badass and the rest of the kids in the 70s and 80s didn't have the foresight to see the nerds were plotting their revenge for the top spot in the social hierarchy, any kids at the time sporting a realistic boombox or realistic stereo were essentially just nerds.
Nerds.
And you could easily argue that not all realistic models were that great. They made some budget entry-level pieces of equipment, and they were a great option for people that just didn't want to buy a brand name like Pioneer or Marantz. But what a lot of people didn't realize back then, including myself, is Radio Shack didn't make most of their products. Their parent company Tandy made some of them, but a lot of them were outsourced to other companies making products for Pioneer, Marantz, Sansui, Techniques. It just isn't anything the public was super aware of at this time. Unless maybe you were a hi-fi dealer or somebody with some inside connections, you probably had no idea, and neither did I. And if you're not new to the hi-fi forums on the internet, you've definitely stumbled upon threads where people are literally following old paper trails and deciphering codes to try and figure out which manufacturer made which specific model for realistic. At this point, most people agree that brands like CEC, NEC, Foster, Hitachi, and Toshiba made the majority of the realistic product, at least in the 70s and 80s. And over the years being inside and out of these speakers, receivers, turntables, you start to make a mental list of what's really good and exceptional. And I don't think there's any question that the realistic STA 2100 is absolutely one of the best. There are a lot of commonalities between the 2100 and the Pioneer SX 1050, so much so that there was actually litigation happening between the two companies. And we'll get into that in a minute, but first let's look at the specs real quick. The realistic STA 2100 was produced between 1978 and 1979. This was one of the most powerful receivers realistic ever made, and definitely designed to compete with Pioneer and Marantz. Rated at 120 watts per channel into 8 ohms, it also featured a toroidal transformer, like the SX 1050. This was not a cheap receiver for Radio Shack either. In 1978, they were $599. And with our inflation calculator, we're looking at $2,500 to $3,000 in 2025. Even though Radio Shack claimed the 2100 was made in our own factory, like several other high-end realistic products, they were made by Foster. And you're going to see a pattern with Foster as we keep going. Just looking on the inside of a 2100, you can see how well these are built. What else screams quality more than the word quality on the transformer? Duh. And the 2100 was actually very short-lived, and it was because of a dispute with Pioneer over that toroidal transformer, who held the rights to similar technology, and as a result, Tandy dropped the 2100 and later came out with a 2100D, which used a conventional transformer to avoid legal issues. And in May of 2025, if you're looking to pick up a 2100, keep in mind these are on the rare side because of that short run of manufacturing. However, they're still a good deal when you find them, usually between $500 to $900. And then a restored unit, you're probably going to pay a little bit north of $1,000. But compared to an SX 1050, they're still a bargain. That's still a sleeper. Another receiver I definitely wanted to talk about is the STA 90, and this might be my favorite sleeper receiver from the 70s. These things are just cool. They've got a really unique look to them with that black, orange, and yellow radio dial. These were released in 1976 and sold through 1978. This was a mid-range receiver in the lineup with 45 watts per channel. Again, manufactured by Foster, of course. And the MSRP on the STA 90 in 1976 was $359.95, which is about $1,800 to $2,000 in 2025. We just had one of these in here not too long ago, and I really liked that thing. I loved the sound of it. It was nice and punchy. I loved the looks of it. It was built really well. I would definitely grab another one of those if they come my way. Don't overlook the STA 90. That is a very, very cool receiver from Realistic. And before we get into maybe Realistic's most iconic product, best-selling product, let's look at the Lab 400 turntable. The Lab 400 is a direct drive, fully automatic turntable introduced by Radio Shack under the Realistic brand in 1978 and marketed as the finest turntable we've ever made. Pretty bold. The Lab 400 is not a light turntable. It actually comes in at 20 pounds. And in 1978, the retail price of a Lab 400 was $199.99, equivalent to around $1,000 in 2025. This turntable was designed for audiophiles on a budget, offering high performance at an affordable price. The Lab 400 was manufactured by Toshiba in Japan. This is another Realistic product that will absolutely go neck and neck, toe to toe, with Pioneer, Marantz, Sansui, any of the big players at the time. For the longest time, the online community speculated that this was a CEC turntable. However, that's recently been debunked, but you could see why, as there are so many similarities between the Lab 400 and other models that were manufactured for Marantz, Pioneer by CEC. Lab 400s still come around for sale every once in a while, and that's just another testament to how well these were made. These turntables are 45, 50 years old. And still a bargain today in 2025. You can usually pick up a Lab 400 anywhere between $125 to maybe $350, $450. It's a great looking turntable, great sounding turntable. It's a sleeper, and if it had the Marantz badge on it, it'd be worth 4 times that. The mighty Minimus 7. Radio Shack and Realistic launched the Minimus 7 in 1977 and sold all the way through the 90s. And again, while on the back it says the Tandy Corporation, there's a lot of speculation out there as to whether Foster made this one too. And in 1977, these were $50 each, but they would often have sales dropping them down to $35. I don't know if we've ever had more of one product come through the store than the Minimus 7. They must have sold thousands of these things. You see them with brackets. They were mounted outside. They made all kinds of variants and versions of this speaker, from wood cabinets, different colors. This was possibly one of the best-selling speakers of all time. They're everywhere. This is a heavy speaker. This has got some serious weight to it. Metal chassis. This is not a large speaker replacement. They are what they are. But the detail that comes out of these, soundstage, to me, everything the speaker does it better than a speaker this size should. And this is another product I think could be put in the list of best sleepers of all time. Over the years, the cult following the Minimus 7s have is pretty crazy. This is a speaker you can still find in thrift stores and garage sales because there were so many of them made. And a lot of people would build entire surround sound systems out of them. They'd grab 5 Minimus 7s, a subwoofer, and that was it. It was all they needed. It was kind of like a Bose Lifestyle mini cube system on the cheap. The funny thing is, most of these are still around. The Bose mini cube systems, don't see them very often. Because of their size and how robust these are, you see a lot of techs using them on their benches. And the ones that are a little bit more on the beat up side, that's exactly what we have them for. We keep a whole little pile of them down underneath the tech bench, just in case we need to monitor another receiver or an amplifier. We don't want to take up a large footprint with a big speaker. These are perfect. I've still got some with Goodwill stickers plastered on the side that say $5.99 each, and I bought every single one of them. And I think the reputation of Realistic ended up getting so bad that they rebranded it Optimus. And a lot of that just had to do with people not knowing, myself included. Even though I had a couple sound designs, at the time, if I wasn't so led by peer pressure, too naive to realize how good those Realistic products were, or I probably would have bought them. I think for a lot of us at that age, that groupthink just got to us. And it's unfortunate, because there were some really good products out there by Realistic. Fortunately, you can still grab some of them. Start watching Realistic receivers, turntables on eBay. Wait for the right one to come up at the right price and nab it. I'm definitely keeping my eye out for another STA90, because if there's one receiver right now that would make me add another receiver to my collection, it would be the STA90. It's just so unique. It's so cool. Share your story in the comments on Realistic. I appreciate you watching. Thanks. And if you like this video, you should definitely go watch this one. It's a fun one, I promise. It's good.